We are setting up the projector addressing the point of juniors being the main cause of the confusion. Let me tell you that we have many gray areas. That's why everything is subject to different interpretations. Here I'm referring to procedures. Also, people working at the customs authority should have decent pay. Otherwise, they would look for ways to increase their income, because you cannot give a pay or pay people like peanuts and asking them not to take bribes. This is like illogical. The many rumors you referred to and the detection devices you referred to took us many years to operate, and even after delivering these devices, people are trying to prevent it from work. Here you're referring, I think, to illegitimate trade. System failures are a major hindrance. Dr. Khaled, the floor is yours. Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to make 2 points before delving deep into my presentation. Building on what Dr. Abla said, I talked with Mr. Ahmed. What if I have a container with cotton cloth in العين السخنة in Derbala or Damietta or Port Said? The fees for customs clearance supposedly should be the same. But in reality, each port in Egypt varies in cost per container. So each port is working in an isolation. So here we have a lack of transparency when it comes to the fees charged in each port. Yes, and this is due to a lack of unified process. We have been working from 2000 to 2015 and up to 2018 to study the system. We studied the system in detail, and then we issued a proof of concept that is not operational yet. So we are done with the study, and the proof of concept was very well received, but nothing was enforced. So let me walk you through the presentation here. We have 2 slides to set the tone. The main concept of the digital economy revolves around having mechanisms to digitize everything, to have indicators, digitized indicators, like the KPIs, the growth rates, the contribution of a certain sector in the GDP, direct and indirect investment. All these indicators will be generated due to digitization. Digitization of any economic sector is geared towards coming up with economic indicators to help me issue sound policies. And these indicators should be stable. Or, so for example, if certain indicators numbers increase, then this is a testimony to, for example, ever increasing inflation. We studied the strategy of authority embarking on a digitization policy based on the results set by this authority. So I need to study the existing structure in order to define the deficiencies that we need to address in order to achieve the strategic results. So I identify the weaknesses along with the strategies in order to come up with the to-be system. Accordingly, we can identify the technology to enable me. So technology, it just a means. Technology is just a tool that might be used or not in line with the objectives set. Here, let me define trading across borders index or indicator. It's one of the most influential indicators when it comes to doing business performance. Egypt ranked 170 out of 190 countries. We are in the same group with Yemen, Syria, North Korea, so war-torn or crisis-torn countries. In 2019, we went down one rank. We stood at 170 first, so we are among the lowest ranking 17 countries. This is very important in logistics. We have the Mediterranean, we have the Red Sea, the Nile River. How come this is the logistical position of Egypt? Here, whether in Tafri'a or the new Suez Canal, we want to set up a new economic zone, and how can we be able to attract investments? This indicator is based on measuring time and cost of customs clearance. So here we need to study the port system, the customs system, and the oversight of imports and imports. So for example, the Netra here is involved because you need to get the approval for getting this telecom device. And of course here we also need to involve the vet, plant and health quarantine. And if I have a small cabinet to manage this, because as you know, customs is affiliated to the Ministry of Finance, ports is affiliated to the Ministry of Transport, GOIC, the authority issuing specifications and the standards. So for example, if you're receiving frozen fish at -4, you need to carry out these checks and examinations on a certain sample. So here I'm referring to a system, a multi-authority system. It's not a single authority. That's why I want to draw the analogy to a cabinet. So here we can study the examples of neighboring countries like Emirates, Turkey and Morocco. Here you have the ranking, and this is the same table enlisted in the doing business indicator. We are measuring the cost and the time in hours and comparing it to importing versus exporting. Emirates stood at the 98th and they only spent 33 hours. The cost is $640 and the number is 90-70 when it comes to export. Turkey stands at the 42nd position and they spend half a day and the cost is $126. Morocco, the biggest competitor when it comes to logistics, one of the big companies transported or relocated many of the investments here to Morocco due to the effectiveness there in Morocco. Morocco stands at the 62nd 230 is the cost, 91 hours for importing, 340 for exporting. Egypt stood at the 171, 136 hours divided by 24, and here the cost is 358 for exporting, 505 hours. And the figures are even optimistic. 1,554 US dollars is the cost of Easter. Here, this applies to 20 feet container.
يعني ال 505 دي للمكافئ الواحد. شايفين الارقام شكلها عامله ازاي؟
So you would find all these figures in the report on doing business indicators. This is a snapshot of the report. Here 88 and 48. These are the time for importing and exporting. So time to export and time to import. If we want to set the strategic objectives of such a system, we need to first to involve the customs authority. They want to facilitate legitimate trade. They want to upgrade human capital. This is a snapshot of the website of the Egyptian Customs Authority. They also want to address the threats of illegitimate trade. They want to establish partnerships with government bodies in line with international standards. They want to collect revenues efficiently, fairly, and effectively. These are the 5 strategic objectives of the Egyptian Customs Authority. Okay, let us say that this is what we want to do. Does the Customs Authority have the mechanisms to do so in line with the or in light of the ministerial decrees issued every now and then? It's like a spider web. You cannot walk through. Do you remember the Chernobyl reactor explosion? Customs Authority still enforce a decree stipulating that any dairy products coming from the Soviet Union countries, yes, it's drafted as such, should be subject to radiation checks or radiation examination. Can we have been enforcing this decree for more than 25 years. And the same applies true to wood products, not only dairy products. Put differently, you need to take that into consideration when you set the strategic objectives. Here we want Egypt to be among the first 100 countries in 3 years, and this is a major milestone for Egypt given the current ranking. We want to reduce the indicator to be in line with the international ones in 3 or 5 years. Any consignment or shipment arriving at the port should be detected. Of course, people want to do so because everything should be examined, detected in order to avoid any evasion or any illegitimate trade. Let me ask you, what is the detection rate in Germany, the US, Europe, Russia, among other countries?
فرنسا بتكشف 100%، امريكا بتكشف 100%، روسيا. تمام.
Because these people have a rationale. Of course, they care for the health of their own people and they will not let drugs or explosives in, but they have an excellent IT system in order to act proactively rather than reactively. So these people have a risk management system. So for example, if we have a multinational company working in pharmaceutical products, importing certain ingredients or intermediate goods from Germany to manufacture in Egypt, should I take a sample and analyze this sample and the result will be negative? After all of these procedures, I will clear the goods. If we have a risk management system, then the risk factor for certain shipments is low. So I can do a random check. I can check one shipment among 5. So the maximum rate of detection should be 20%. In Egypt, this number is 100%.
احنا بنكشف 100%. ما انا هتوصل، هاجي لحضرتك بقى صفر.
It's because we don't have a risk management system. That's why.
لا حضرتك خدي الفلوس، القضيه مش كده. القضيه حضرتك انت ما بتطبقيش منظومه مخاطر خالص.
How can we move from being reactive to proactive in order to prevent illicit trade from coming into Egypt? We had 11 containers of food products, and this time the detection equipment was operational and they examined the consignment. So part of the container was loaded with food products and the rest of the container was loaded with fireworks. That's why we wanted to consult other authorities like the Explosives Management Authority. So they involved the armed forces and they asked for 10 million to discharge this shipment. So importers should pay for that amount. In fact, all the bill lading is marked as to order. So the owner is unknown. That's why the state had to pay for the 10 million to get rid of the 11 containers because they couldn't identify the owner of the shipment because it's to order bill of lading. Why? Because we act reactively. And this is a major point to be taken into consideration. We need to separate service providers from service applicants through good governance mechanisms. So importers are in direct contact with customs officers. And all hell break loose at this point. Also, we need transparency when it comes to customs clearance procedures. Mr. Ahmed, let me ask you, do you know the fees charged on containers coming in through different ports? No. Also, we need KPIs when it comes to customs releases for incoming and outgoing shipments. This is the existing system. You get a notification and then you have anchorage notice and then storage. and you cannot
بعدين لما الراجل يجي
identify the
فطبعا من
time
ساعة ليه لغايه ما
needed.
الراجل يبتدي ياخد اجراءات الافراج دي مده غير معلومه، ممكن الراجل يرمي مهمل.
And
على
sometimes
فكره في كونتينرات كتيره جدا
even
بتيجي
people would
وهو رامي
chart
جوه البلد
their
يحاول
shipment
يفتحوا البتاع ياخدوا البتاع ويسيبوا الكونتينر. الرساله
without
قاعده في
following
البلوك
the
السوداء
process.
بتتحرك في الاخر بتتحول مهمل
And then
ويطلع
you get
مزاد
the customs
وخسائر.
certificate in a day,
يبتدي يفتح
and all the procedures
يبتدي يفتح
might
الشهاده
take
الجمركيه
from 6 to
بياخد
18
تقريبا يوم،
days,
بعد كده بقى بيخش ده
especially
من
food
6 ل
products.
18 يوم. اجراءات الكشف والفحص اللي بتقوم بيها
Take into
الرقابه خصوصا لو كانت
consideration the poor capacities of
خصوصا
our
لو كانت
central labs
طبعا
and lack
بتبقى عندك
of
ضعف معامل
state-of-the-art
مش جاهز
equipment.
بتجيب
Here I want to refer to the
بعد كده
payment
بيبتدي
and
ياخد
clearance time.
وياخد الافراج. المتوسط الحقيقي بقى
If
من
we
16 ل
are
29 يوم.
considering
عايز أقول لكم
pharmaceutical
إن أنا لو
products,
كان شأن
it
الدوائي
might
كان
go
شأن
from
الصيدلانيات
29
الرقم
days
يوصل
to
25
40 something. Remember the 500 days? I think this number is even less than the reality. I think it's more than 28 days.
تعدي يعني يمكن دلوقتي عدت كمان 29.
Deficiencies or points of improvement.
طيب
It's human-centric.
ايه النقاط الخلل؟ أول حاجة
The importer should
على العامل البشري.
submit all the data to customs authorities or to inspection authorities. Importers get the customs authority,
المستورد أو المخلص بتتفتح له الشهادة الجمركية دي.
and the importer or exporter is responsible for handling this data among competent authorities. So supposedly a customs officer should be responsible for this.
مثلا في حد من الجمرك هو اللي مسؤول بيلف بالشهاده، لا هو المخلص هو اللي عايش بالورقه وماشي بيها جوه الجمرك، بينقل تداول بياني بين وحدات الجمرك.
Also here we do not have any kind of separation among providers and applicants. We also don't have a mechanism to identify the owner of the shipment because it's always to order.
لان انا ممكن جايب الكونتينرات بتاعتي ال سي له الكونتينر لود بمعنى
So the bill of lading is not owned by a certain one.
ومعايا ناس تانية، فالبوليس الكونتينر مش بتاع واحد، هو بتاع مكتب واحد، تمام؟ او ان انا ما دفعتش تكلفه الشحن.
That's why
الراجل الفريد اوردر بيجي يعمل ايه؟ يقول لي والله انت ما دفعتش فلوس الشحن.
So this is the meaning and the complications of the order bill of lading, and this might be taken advantage of in smuggling drugs or weapons or whatsoever. And of course, again, the system is reactionary rather than proactively. So for example, we have importers in Alexandria that get their goods from Sokhna port and not Alexandria port because procedures and pricing are better in Sokhna, while Alexandria port is poor. So for example, I can pay $1 in Alexandria port and buy 50 cents in Sokhna port without anyone detecting this. So if we can say that detection rate is 100%, what about pricing mechanisms? Again, we do not have a system of risk management. We do not have a unified pricing system. I'm trying to go fast. I'm just focusing on the highlights of the study. If we want to digitize trading across borders, then we first need to understand the system. Here we have two partners. Government to government, because again we have many authorities involved here, GOIC, ports, customs authorities. and many regulatory authorities that work under GOIC, and some regulatory authorities work outside the scope of GOIC, like NETRA, for example. We also have a business community. What's the relation between the business to government? I'm sending a request to the government, and here it's B to G, and then G to G, and then G to B. If we can automate this system, then we have a single window system. So we can automate the three relations. You get a request, an automated request from business to government, and then an automated request from government to government, and then an automated response from government to business. This is a single window system. But now what is in vogue is the trade community, business to business. So for example, in Spain, if I have a container that I want to ship, I can use the single window to book transportation, and also to send notices and notifications to customs authority. It's all automated. If we can automate this four relations, then this is trade community. If I can only automate the three relations, then it's a single window system. Examples. These are the 5 or the strategic objectives. I will focus on one, which is the increasing the detection rate. Here I'm referring to a risk management system. So here I have the consignment data, and I have a risk management system. You would start with the rank. The consignment might be above the threshold or under the threshold. So if it's 70% risky, then we need to detect and inspect. If it's less than this, then we can bypass the inspection. Of course, the EOS works on compliance, and GOIC also is responsible for governance because they detect and inspect. They also conduct the samples. Also, the main quarantines are responsible for this because, for example, foot and mouth disease might be detected if there is a certain risk. I'm trying to simplify things because I cannot delve deep into the details due to time constraints.
Now we have reached this point. The last point, we have conducted a study and applied it to the Port of Alexandria. And in this imaginary scenario, we thought, in 2017, the TEU is equivalent to the 20 feet unit. It received 820,000 containers with an increase of 2% annually. And these 505 hours are divided for the cost and the time. The cost for border compliance reaches 3.1 per hour, and the port receives $100 per container. This case was conducted in 2015, while we ranked 150, and the trading was 170 based on 2018 report. If we reduce the clearance time by 24 hours, only over 3 years, what would be the return for me as a nation? And I'm talking for the country as the the beneficiary and the image of the country and the community which is involved or is part of this procedure. The time, customs clearance time would be 361 instead of 505. The the port revenues would go up to 62 million. The the import bill would drop to $228 million. When we keep the container for over 30 days in the port, I mean, everyone pays the price. It is the private citizens who pay for that. The clearance cost would be reduced from 558 to 388. The ranking would improve by 6 ranks, and the trading across borders index would improve, would go up to nine different orders. And here I'm done. Thank you.